in the United States. Good evening, Nick. Now, how are Americans reacting so far to this attack?
Well, certainly here in Orlando, there has been a very somber mood for the last 24 hours since that shooting. Lots of people gathering, there's been spontaneous visuals, and we're seeing the possibility of larger vigils throughout the course of today. A large meeting should happen this evening where people will come together, not just to remember what's happened here within the LGBT community, but also what's happened in the wider Orlando community, to try and make sense of what happened. The nightclub shooting just down the block from me, just a couple of hundred meters behind me, is where that shooting took place on Sunday, the worst attack on American soil in recent history. They're trying to make sense of it, and it is a very difficult time for Americans and the people of Orlando.
Now, Nick, speaking of trying to make sense of this attack, authorities were reported to be investigating the attack from a terrorist angle. Any developments there?
Well, absolutely, yes. It has been from the start being called a terrorist attack. President Obama, speaking on Sunday, said it was an act of terror, but also an act of hate. However, more information coming out through the course of the morning has said that while the gunman said that he pledged allegiance to the Islamic State, there doesn't seem to be any definite links that he was directly connected to them. President Obama saying there's no direct connection and that IS may have directed him, but essentially he was a homegrown extremist, making it clear that while there was perhaps this inspiration from IS, he himself perhaps did not have any direct links with the terrorist group.
Now, Nick, there must be a growing outcry regarding gun control, especially the assault rifle used in the attack.
Well, yes, always when there is this type of mass shooting, there is a question mark as to how easy it is for people to get their hands on these type of weapons. The assault rifle that was used in this is a very, very powerful weapon, and as we saw, it was possible for this lone gunman, acting by himself, to kill a vast number of people in a very short space of time. Of course, we have to remember in the United States that right to bear arms is something that's written into the Constitution, and whenever we have violence of this kind involving firearms, there is always an instant backlash from both sides, from the people who say it should be harder for people to get their hands on guns, and for others who say, well, look, it's not the guns that kill people, it is the people that kill people. So it is a debate that will continue to take place. It's unlikely that there will be any changes after mass shootings in the past. We've seen President Obama and some members of the Democrat Party try to make changes, try to propose things within Congress to make changes to gun laws, but they have often been blocked by Republicans, finding it very difficult to get actual lawful changes through Congress.
Now, Nick, you mentioned the LGBT community a little earlier on, and something that's come out, especially on social media, is the fact that this attack happened at a gay nightclub. Why is it that they're not focusing also on the fact that this could have been a homophobic attack and just looking at the terrorism element only?
Well, I think when you have an attack of this kind, it is very easy to say that, yes, a certain group was or was not targeted, but the underlying cause is always what the FBI and what the authorities want to look at. And in this instance, it does seem that, yes, there was terrorism. It just so happens that the gunman decided to target one particular community, choosing what in many ways was a soft target, as we've seen in the past, where gunmen have gone into workplaces, into movie theatres, into concert halls. This was a place that had a security guard, but not a big armed contingent, so it was easy for him to go in and to create a lot of damage in a short place of time. So yes, there has been lots of discussion about the LGBT community and the fact that they were targeted, but it's very much the underlying causes and these potential terrorist IS inspiration and links that authorities want to focus on.
Now, is there any new information coming forward exonerating police on how they reacted to the attack?
Well, there was a couple of discrepancies to begin with, a couple of lines of inquiry that perhaps didn't seem to have been fully followed up. First, the fact that the FBI twice interviewed this gunman in the past, in 2013 and 2014, when he allegedly made comments to colleagues saying that he had terrorist links. However, the FBI say that they weren't able to find any concrete proof of that, and therefore didn't take it any further, didn't press any charges. So there is this question as to whether the FBI dropped the ball, and then there's also this other potential problem that it took 3 hours for police to enter the nightclub, even though they knew well before that there were gunshots. Indeed, they received a call from the gunman 20 minutes before he carried out the attack, pledging allegiance to IS. So a big question mark as to why it took them so long. But what we have found out today is that they decided to enter the building using an armoured truck because it seemed that they felt that there was a chance of an imminent threat of more people being killed as a result of what was happening inside. So at that point they decided to act, to drive the armoured truck through the wall of the building.
Now, Nick, just before we spoke to you, we saw a clip of the attacker's ex-wife speaking about him and saying that he was mentally ill. Let's look at this trend of people who go around shooting other people, whether it's terrorist attacks, etc., and then claiming mental illness or insanity. What's going on there?
Well, that often seems to be, I guess, a line of inquiry that's always looked at. When you have a shooting of this kind, I mean, it's not the actions of a normal, rational, sane person to go inside a nightclub with those type of weapons and to do the acts that he did. So there's always a question mark as to whether there was some underlying mental illness. And I guess there's always those two parallel tracks, those two lines of inquiries, the mental illness line, but also the terrorism line. So yes, we've heard from the ex-wife to say that he did have mental illness problems. As we've seen in the past, often we have attackers who either claim some sort of level of insanity or try to use that as defense when they come to court. So it is something that's being looked into, because authorities will also want to find out that if he had some sort of mental condition, whether or not doctors treated him in a proper manner, or whether they saw him in a timely fashion. So that is something that authorities will also want to look into as part of this investigation.
Now, Nick, just finally, I saw the statement that you posted on your social media page, the one that Donald Trump had released after the shooting. What's the reaction like to what he's saying about President Obama's statement after the shooting, and also saying how Hillary Clinton should or should not react, for example?
Well, those type of comments are always going to lead to a divided response, especially here in Florida. And it is a key state when it comes to the election, a swing state that has a large number of Democrats, but also a large number of Republicans. Some Republicans I spoke to earlier this morning thought that Donald Trump had a good point. They were behind his message. But of course, Hillary Clinton has come out saying that he is using this whole tragedy for political gain, that he is politicizing it, putting on his Twitter page that he didn't want congratulations, but effectively he had been right about the fact that Muslims should be banned from America. And we heard in just the last hour another speech from Donald Trump talking about the fact that if he became president, he would want to ban immigration from certain parts of the world where there had been terrorist links. He's still pushing that message because he says that, quite simply, we cannot have this type of threat of terrorism from within America's borders. And therefore, he says if he became president, he would work as hard as he possibly could to keep people out who could potentially be involved in these sort of acts.
Nick, we'll have to leave it there. We'll definitely be crossing to you for more on the story. That was our US correspondent, Nick Harper, giving us the latest on that shooting in Orlando.